learned. However, how come at the age of 5 the child acquires most of this complicated system of grammar? How come the child would acquire the syntactic, phonological, morphological, and semantic rules of such a complicated system called language? How can this child join sentences, complex sentences? And how can this child ask questions? How can you use appropriate pronouns? How can to negate sentences? How to form relative clauses? All these cannot be said that human beings acquire language through knowledge or through community or through socialization without anything pre-wired. Children are born with predispositions of language, with parameters of language, and triggering their language or their specific language, for example, the Arabic language or the English language, the French, the Portuguese, the Italian, and so on and so forth. All these languages are only triggered through what is called interaction. So what makes language acquired? I mean, what are the requirements for a language to be acquired by children? Well, there are two basic requirements for a child to be to acquire the language. Number one, interaction. Number two, physical capability. Interaction. There must be a kind of interaction among the language speakers, because without interaction, it will be like the case of Jenny. There won't be any cultural transmission or any knowledge regarding language to be transformed from one generation to another. So the experiment of Jenny, who's a girl and who was in prison and kept away from the society at the moment she was born until the age of 15, which is the age of puberty, and after exposing her to the society to be as a speaker of particular language, she only developed a very limited set of sentences, of linguistic items. Her language was very simple, and she kept so on this situation even after her 30s. At the age of 30, she uses a very simple language. This means that without interaction, without socialization in terms of language, there will not be any kind of language acquirement, language acquisition. Number two, the child must be physically capable. All the organs of speech should be safe and sound, should be ready to acquire language. The child should be able to speak and should be able to hear. And hearing, speaking, and interaction are all interwoven, interrelated together. They're related one to another. We cannot speak if we cannot understand if we cannot hear? We cannot hear unless we can speak, and we cannot speak and hear unless we can interact. So these are the only two requirements for acquiring language. Now, when does the child acquire language? Is there any specific age? Yes, there is. All normal children develop language at roughly the same time, along the same schedule, the same time and the same periods, the same ages. And this biological schedule is related to the maturation of the infant's brain to cope with the linguistic input. So this age could be at the between the 7th, 8th, and 9th age of the child, which is in the pregnancy, during the pregnancy period. There will be a kind of maturation for the brain. So when children start acquiring language, they would only acquire what is regular in language. There is no what is called irregular rules or irregularities. They would only acquire language regularities. Now let's start with the first phase. Or before starting with the first phase, let's talk about the type of language which is used by adult people towards the children. This type of language is called caregiver language or caregiver speech. It is a type of simplified speech adopted by someone who spends time interacting with a child, and it is called caregiver speech. Sometimes the mother who's always babysitting the child. Now, this caregiver speech is characterized by several characteristics which distinguishes this type of language from other types. Let's count them one by one. Number one, it is characterized by frequent use of questions. Number two, simplified lexicon. When talking to children, when talking to any child, we cannot use the complicated set of lexemes in our minds. We use only the ones that the child knows, so that we can make the channel of interaction. Number three, phonological reduction. We always say, oh baby, oh doggy, oh eat this cookie, and so on and so forth. And this kind of phonological reduction is easier to the child than the complete phonological utterance of any given word. Four, higher pitch extra loudness. The extra loudness is necessary for the child because the children might not fully understand what is going on or what is being said. So we need, as caregiver speakers, we need to keep what we say loud and louder, louder and louder. Five, stress intonation. We always talk to children using the stress intonation, so that it could be musical rather than musical and amazing, rather than normal and formal. Six, simple sentences. Of course, we wouldn't think of complex sentences when talking to children. And seven, the use of repetition. A lot of repetition are used in the caregiver speech. Again, caregiver speech is also called motherese, because, as you said, the mother is always babysitting her child, so she always interacts with her children. Now, if you take a look at this example, which should be pictured, because without pictures we cannot represent it very well. However, the mother says, "Look," child touches the pictures. Mother, "What are those?" Child vocalizes a babble string and smiles, which gives something that I understand these are pictures. Mother, "Yes, there are rabbits." Child vocalizes and smiles again. And mother laughs, "Yes, rabbits." It looks like that the mother and the child has some code of communication. Now let's start with the first